Good morning, Russell. Great to see you, finally.
Thanks for having me.
Before we officially start, I have to say your story is one of the most fascinating ones I've come across in education. So, going from a first grade reading level in college to debating law professors and designing learning systems that help students jump several grade levels. That's quite a journey.
Yes, it was one that literally happened because I entered the New York State Assembly internship program. They accommodated the heck out of me and they recommended 15 credits of A minus, but my university, the State University of New York Center at Buffalo's political science department, looked at the accommodations the state itself came up with,
Mhm.
didn't like it, so they flunked me for 15 credits of F, and that's what triggered all of this.
I'm curious, Russell, was there a moment where you realized this struggle you had lived with might actually become a foundation of your life's work?
Well, after I got the F, remember, they recommended, the state government itself
Mhm.
recommended 15 credits of A minus. And when they flunked me, I said, that's it. I'm solving this problem. I just didn't realize it was going to take over 20 years to do it.
That's fascinating. So I think our listeners, Russell, are going to really enjoy where this conversation goes.
I'm looking forward to it.
The following is a conversation with Russell Van Brocklen, a dyslexia researcher and education innovator committed to transforming how dyslexic students learn and succeed. This is Pre-Zero Sports Talk podcast, and I'm your host, Sid Bensalah. Today, we examine dyslexia, learning systems, and human performance to uncover authentic stories and insights that genuinely matter. Thank you for tuning in, subscribing, and supporting the show. If you want to support the show, please see the episode description for more details. Russell, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
When we spoke during our intro chat a couple of months ago, what immediately stood out was how personal this mission is for you.
Yes, as I said, when I got that 15 credits of F because I was dyslexic, I literally went to some of my professors that I still liked, and I said, "Where can I go to force myself to read and write in graduate school so I can teach others?" And they said, "Well, if you like political science, it's easy, law school." So I went and I did not formally enroll in law school. I went and I audited for years and years. And all started out with that second day of contracts class that we discussed, where I entered and then the professor called on me. And that's where things got rather interesting, let's just say.
Yeah. Going back and talking about where all things started, exactly when did you first realize that the traditional education system just wasn't working for how your brain processes information?
Well, I was told at the end of second grade that I was going into special education, that it wasn't punishment,
Mhm.
and I certainly thought that it was. And where it struck me was it was fifth grade, and I have two ancestors who were on the Mayflower, the head religious person and the biggest malcontent of the colony, all combined into one. Um, so I really wanted to do the Pilgrims Project, but I couldn't because I was in special education. So finally, this just built up a lot of resentment until when I was in seventh grade, I had enough, and I had a neighbor who was on the school board. And how things work in the United States is you have local community leaders who literally run the school board, and they hire the superintendent who manages everything. So I literally asked him. He and his son, we got our Eagle Scouts at about the same time. I said, you got to get me out. So he said, I can do this once. So he got me out for history in eighth grade. I was told I was going to flunk. I could just remember everything. I got hundreds on every test and every quiz. Fine, I won the history award for that year, and then I forced my way out for everything in high school for straight college prep for all my subjects. That's when I really realized that the system really sucked.
Yeah. When you reflect now on your early school years, what were the biggest challenges you faced?
Well, I couldn't read and I couldn't write. I found ways for a very short period of time, which were rather unpleasant, to read somewhat okay so I could get through an exam.
Hmm.
And my writing was so bad in high school, I took advanced placement English and advanced placement American history and European history. Sorry. My professor had a PhD from Rensselaer Polytech Institute, which is very uncommon in the States for a high school teacher. And he said he would have to spend an hour and a half for each of my short answers to figure out what I was trying to say.
Hmm.
I knew it all, but I just couldn't know what to say. So I would usually get like hundreds on the multiple choice, and then just the essays were just pretty much zeros. So I just realized that, yeah, this is a big problem for me. I was not supposed to go to college. I just went anyway. I was just too stubborn.
Hmm. And that was from the get-go, from the primary school all the way to college, or?
Yes, I just when I got the history award in eighth grade as the best history student.
Mm.
I went college prep for everything, and it was just a complete mismatch because everybody kept trying to figure out how to teach me to
Yeah.
read. And besides short term pushing it, I just couldn't. My writing was so absolutely atrocious. Here's a quick story to just so you can figure out just how much I was gaming the system. We have a Regents exam after 3 years of education in Spanish that you could take.
Mhm.
I kept passing the practiced exams, even though I knew no Spanish.
Mhm.
And I just took a zero on the speaking part. And the teachers wanted to know, how was I passing? Because I was taking my exams not in a classroom where you could cheat, but in the
Right.
special ed room where I got teachers just staring at me. And I said, well, what I did is if you look at the questions
Mm.
if you look at the questions, the ones that had the most words in it, in comparison, I'm sorry, if the answer with the most words in it, in comparison to the question, was right over 80% of the time, and that's what I was choosing.
Mhm.
So they wouldn't let me take the Regents exam
Exactly.
because they knew I didn't know any Spanish, but yet I could pass it with like a
You could.
67.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, amazing, amazing. And can you tell me, Russell, teachers and classmates' perception, how they perceived those struggles, your struggles?
Well, let me give you an example for like when I was taking advanced placement European history. So just so everybody knows, in the United States, instead of A levels like in England, we
Mm.
have advanced placement tests that are coming out of Princeton University and they're for college credit. A 3 out of 5 is considered passing. I kept, I got a 3 on my AP European exam, and my professor my teacher couldn't believe it because he said the average is like a 60 and 60%, and your essays were getting zeros. So you must have scored like near perfect. And that's what I always did. I almost scored near perfect on the multiple choice section, and I would just basically flunk the essay portion.
Mhm. Mhm. And did anyone identify dyslexia early at that
Oh
time?
yeah, as I said, I was placed in special ed in third grade. So when I was 8 years old, I was placed in special ed.
Yeah. Yeah.
They just knew nothing how to help me. It was it was exceedingly ridiculous. Now so essentially that happened to me in the early '80s, but
Mhm.
there was a school dealing with dyslexia called the Gow School since 1926 in New York State.
Mhm.
This is their 100th anniversary. They
Right.
knew.
They knew.
They
Yeah.
just didn't want to bother going through the extra trouble to deal with it.
When you say they didn't want to bother, is it what's the root cause? Lack of funding or the will to
No,
basically?
well, this is really what it is. This is the top book in my field called Overcoming Dyslexia by Dr. Sally Shaywitz.
Mhm.
Okay. And she's an MD from Yale.
Mhm.
This is dyslexia. So do you see how the back part of your brain
Yeah.
has this massive neural activity?
Yeah.
The back part of my brain has essentially nothing,
Yeah.
but the front
Right.
part of my brain's about 2.5 times overactive. Okay.
Yeah.
So how it's supposed to happen, and this is from a federal judge in New York State. What's supposed to happen is the kids in kindergarten. You go to Yale and you just type dyslexia Yale and say, how do I test for dyslexia in kindergarten? It's like $40, $50. The teacher themselves can do it. It's
Mhm.
cheap. It's effective.
Mhm.
Once you find out the kid's dyslexic, and you go back to Yale, how do I fix this by the end of third grade? Because in the States, kindergarten through third grade, think 5 to 8, you learn to read. Fourth and above, you read to learn. The statistics are very clear. If you pass the state, in my state, it's New York State, the English language arts test. If you pass that in third grade, you're going to be fine.
Right.
If you fail it, it's an emergency 911
Right.
for education.
For
So if
education. Yeah.
you yes, so if you go to Yale and say, how do I fix this? They have all these programs. Each one's about $1 million to verify that it worked, funded by the federal government. Take those, pick what you want. By the end of third grade, the dyslexic will be passing that test or be close to it.
Mhm.
If you do not, then you're going to find what happened to one of our state leaders. His name is New York State Assembly member Brad Hoylman Segal.
Mhm.
He's a Rhodes Scholar and a Harvard Law grad. He found out that his daughter Sylvia, in fourth grade, was dyslexic.
Mhm.
He spent $8,000 on the neuropsych exam. His family can afford it, and
Right.
they found out. So now, what do you have to do? Now you're in a school like the Windward Academy in the Upper East Side of New York
New
City.
York City.
It's yep. Just to give you an example, how this solved. Once you fail that test and you're in fourth grade, this is your option. Traditionally,
Mhm.
they have a 98% success rate. They take students in and they work with them for 4 to 5 years with a student to teacher ratio of 4 to 1 or 5 to 1. At the end of that, they're as educated as the best private schools on the planet. Then they send the student back to where they came from, but it's 75,000 a year for 4 to 5 years just in tuition.
Wow. Crazy.
Yeah, so that's what
Crazy.
he's doing with his daughter. When you're trying to fix that, so when you're looking at the K through 3 education system, if you don't do it the right way, a federal judge calls that gross negligence.
Mhm.
So fourth and above, that's where I'd come in because I looked at the educational landscape and I don't want to be fighting with Yale. They're
Right.
the 800-pound gorilla in my field. So when I'm looking at this, my solution is to start working with the kids in fourth grade and up so parents can teach their kids and not have to worry about sending them to a private school for 4 to 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Russ, how did your experiences impact your confidence?
Well, when I was going through school, I what happens with people like me is one of two things generally happens. Either you become extraordinarily motivated and you're just going to
Mhm.
fight through anything, or you become broken, shattered as a person. It's kind of like a dumbbell. There's a few things in the middle with a connection, but most of it's on one of those two ends. And I was one of those that just kind of said to heck with it. I just pushed through it. I got my Eagle Scout for Boy Scouts when I was 17, pressed through college, and just kept going until I figured it out. And it just took forever.
You told me earlier during college you were evaluated and found to have roughly first grade reading and writing level.
Mhm.
I'm just trying
Yeah.
to process
So,
that moment. What were you thinking at that moment, Russ?
well, I kind of generally knew, but what happened was, and this literally saved me in for what I'm doing. I wanted to go to grad school, and my documentation ran out.
Mm.
So I called up the disability office at my university, and they said there's a backlog of months for people that need this.
Mhm.
Just so happened that Professor Halichka had an office like less than a half a kilometer from my campus. And
Mhm.
I went and she said she started the evaluation, did half of it, sent the other half to a school psychologist. She wrote it up. And what happened, it confirmed I have a reading writing level of a 6 year
Mhm.
old. But the reason why that was so critical is because when I finished up with law school for what I needed, and I went back to the state and I said, I want you to fund my dyslexia research program, they said, okay, go to the education department. And they told me they wanted a New York State distinguished professor in psychology to evaluate me. And there were two in Western New York. And if I didn't get the approval of one of them, I was going to go nowhere. And it just so happened she was one of those two one of those two distinguished professors. So when I asked her to do this, she said she would. She called up her own department at Buffalo State College in psychology and said, what is the most crazy evaluation, the most thorough one I could give him?
Mhm.
They sent it over. She evaluated me for 3 days, over 20 hours.
Oi.
And what she
Oi.
found, and I make this available to anybody who wants it, is she confirmed again, because remember, she had
What's her
data
name
from
again,
me from
Russ?
Dr. Irene Halichka.
Irene. Okay.
Yes. So so I make this available to anybody who wants. So she had data from me years before, so she knew where I was. I'm just not
Mhm.
coming in cold. And then
Mhm.
she spent 20 hours over 3 days just beating me up with every conceivable question.
Mhm.
And at the end, she said, here's what's going on. Uh, Generally, I'm operating parts of my brain that simply do not function. I
Right.
have a first grade reading and writing level. When I turn my system on, it's like a white light switch. My writing is above average at the graduate level, about the 70th percentile. And then it can
Mhm.
go back down again or on again with a turning up, like essentially like a light switch. And she said, here's what happened. And she wrote up a 5-page report. And let's just say that got the state's attention.
Mhm. And did that diagnosis, which is 20 plus hours findings, finally explain years of frustration?
Yeah, it pretty much described there are the diagnostic test divided the brain into 5 areas. Mine were very abnormal in all five. And essentially, what she concluded is I'm going from a part of my brain that does not function when
Mhm.
I turn my system on to to areas of the cerebrum that are intact.
Mhm.
And she did. It's a complicated 5-page report, but essentially that's what she's saying.
Correct me if I'm wrong here, Russ. At the same time, I think you were working inside the New York State Assembly.
Yeah, well, that's what kind of triggered this. That was in the spring of 1997.
Okay.
That was 29 years ago. So when I went to the assembly, I showed them my neuropsych evaluation,
Mhm.
and it freaked them out because back then you had the traditional internship is you had the elected official, the chief of staff, who was probably an intern a year or two before, and the intern.
And so,
You had to answer
let me
phones. What's
let
that?
me ask you one thing. You showed them your evaluation. Was it a
Yes.
one sheet
Oh, no, no.
evaluation, or
This was Dr.
was
Olichka.
okay? Was the whole thing basically
It was a several page report,
right?
and it freaked them out because they knew I couldn't do the internship the way
Right.
it's structured.
Mhm.
So they went up to the speaker's office, and the speaker's office said, "You are not getting rid of this kid because he's dyslexic. Figure it out.
Mhm.
Get a committee together." So they got a committee together, and they did a really radical thing. They physically took me out of the legislative office building because a big part of the internship was being with your peers. They
Mhm.
moved me physically into the Capitol, so I never saw my peers hardly at all.
Okay.
And they put me in Majority Leader's Program and Council's office that ran the assembly day to day. And I walked in and I saw instantly why they did it. There are 3 administrative assistants that can help me out,
Mhm.
and they had no clue what to do with an undergrad. They deal with a grad student, which is a real policy position.
Mhm.
So that's how they treated me. So while everybody else is answering phones and getting coffee and filing things, I'm dealing with the New York State Assembly's position on gambling because we had to change the Constitution.
Mhm.
I got committee assignments. It was fantastic. I can't tell you how jealous people were.
What they seen on you? What kind of potential they've seen?
Oh, they accommodated the living daylights out of me. They got me a new computer. They had a rotation of who I could go to at any time saying,
Mhm.
I would say, here's my current, again, my writing was horrific, but I was typing it up.
Mhm.
And the administrative assistant would just go, go back and retype this, work on this. And then I'd come back a few hours later and they would do it again. And I would rotate depending who was free. So they loved the ideas that I had. They loved how I could sit down and remember, I'm acting as a graduate student,
Yeah.
not some college
Not,
kid.
yeah.
So they would have people come in, we would discuss things, and they liked the fact that I could actually act like an adult. And the other thing that I voluntarily did is I spent a lot of time on nights and weekends there. All right. The other kids, right when they could, they just left. I stayed around because I understood what this was.
Mhm.
This wasn't a internship. This was a really long job interview. So I planned, and just so everybody knows what I gave up by doing this, this just crystallized what I how I knew how power worked. The budget came out, and back then it's printed. It's like this thick, and some of the newer members didn't get theirs for a couple of days.
Mhm.
So a former intern came in. She's talking to the office manager, and she's now a lobbyist, and she needs a budget for her to do her job. So the office manager calls down, "Yeah, I need another budget. I don't care. This is the majority leader's office. Actually, don't send me one. Send me an extra three because she could use a few for her
Yeah.
colleagues." So she got the budgets that was supposed to go to to the elected officials because she knew the person who ran the place,
Yeah.
and that's what I was offered lobbying positions. I was offered state positions that I knew would grow very quickly because I knew the people that ran the place,
Mhm.
and I gave all that up to fix dyslexia.
What was your reaction, Russ, at that time?
When they flunked me,
Yeah.
I was furious. All right. So, and that fury held up to when I went to law school. Remember,
Mhm.
I'm auditing.
Mm.
Okay. I don't care about, I'm just here to learn. And then when the professor called on me, to me, this wasn't just a call. This was all the frustration that built up. And I was not, because in the United States, they use the Socratic method.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what they're doing the first week of law school. So they ask you questions, you don't know the answer. They ask you more questions to embarrass you publicly
Mhm.
until you adapt. And I wasn't going to put up with it.
Was it the main goal to adapt or to build some kind of resilience or some kind of grit?
Well,
I don't know.
well, you have to understand what law school is. You get thrown in front of a judge, you have to argue any side, anytime, instantly. There's no coddling here. The
But then,
courts are overburdened. They train you from day one. If you can't answer the question, they will keep asking questions and embarrass you until you adapt.
Mhm.
It's
So
trial
basically,
by
it's a
fire.
yeah, it's a training or kind of a personal development to develop this kind of persona that can win an argument. Put it this way.
Right. But what happened to me is when they called on me, I didn't respond as a student. I
Mhm.
responded as his equal. Now, understand, this professor was teaching longer than I was alive at the point. So he goes after me, I answer. He's nothing's working. He tries different angles, nothing's working. I'm now attacking him. I know where he's going multiple steps ahead of time. He knows where I'm going. We're going back and forth, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, which is just beyond an eternity in law school.
Mhm.
My classmates are looking at me like, what the heck is this? Finally, the professor throws up his arm and said, "Russell, you couldn't be any more correct. In
Mhm.
the interest of time, I have to move on to the next
Yeah.
case."
So
And
hang on here.
anytime we discuss things afterwards, the same thing happened.
Yeah. So again, for our listeners, Russ, you made the
Mhm.
brave choice to attend law school despite all the difficulties you explained now with reading,
Mhm.
writing. What exactly
Yes.
motivated you to take that step? Because it's not a small step.
No, I mean, what happened was as I said previously, I was going to force myself to learn to read and write so I can help others.
Yeah, that's one thing.
And
But then
yes,
law school,
You
it's
had no choice. You had what ended up happening. I'll tell you what happened with the reading. In my property class, about a month in, we started getting quizzes once a week.
mm,
All right. And what I found strange was you're supposed to do is read each question and think for 3 to 5 minutes. That's how sophisticated it was to try to fool you. When I read it, I read slower than molasses as usual. But once I finished reading, I could answer it within like a second. I didn't even think for 3 to 5 seconds. I said, that's the answer.
Mhm.
And I would finish up with a quiz faster than anybody. And I almost always had perfect hundreds. And I said, this is easy. And people said, well, how can you be so good at law school but not become a lawyer? Well, then I came into legal research and writing, and I just couldn't keep up.
Mm.
So it took me years to learn how to write, about a month to learn how to read.
Yeah. So you said you had no choice, but
I
you
I
faced the
essentially,
problem. You faced the problem heads on.
yeah, there was nothing harder to do than going to law school to force myself to learn to read and write when I couldn't read and write. This was the lawyers read and write more than any other program in grad school in the United States.
Mhm.
There's nothing comes close to it as far as the sheer volume of reading, the sheer volume of writing.
Writing.
It
Yeah.
is the ultimate of a liberal arts education. And I just knew if I stuck with this long enough, I would learn to read and write. And I didn't care how difficult the journey was. And it was an interesting journey.
Yeah. Russell, you described a moment when you were debating a professor and something suddenly clicked. Can you walk us through that moment?
Sure. So what happened for the first time in my life is everything came into focus and I could just see everything clearly.
Mm.
What I found out later is that essentially, well, I'm talking about the overactive front part of the brain. So if
Mhm.
you ask a dyslexic, in your speciality, do you have ideas flying around your head at light speed but with little to no organization? The answer is yes. So what I found is we are horrible with general to the specific, but we excel at specific to the general.
Right.
And when you think that way, I was asked a very specific point and I had to go up, but for the first time, everything organized. And I have 2.5 times the neural activity in the front part of my head, which finally came into focus. So when I'm going back and forth with a professor, I mean, law is essentially not that complicated. You got the individual and the state, and there's various policy conflicts between the two. And then you just follow that. And I could process information in orders of magnitude faster than my peers. So what I found out is in graduate school, you have I will always read slower. I will always write slower, but I could process information at orders of magnitude faster than my classmates. So in grad school, dyslexia is an extraordinarily unfair advantage.
Mm. What was going on through your mind during that exchange with that professor?
It was like literally like verbal warfare. I was not going to be humiliated by him.
Mhm.
I was trying to humiliate him. And I tried my darndest, but I couldn't phase him. I could see where he was going. I was trying to lay traps. I mean, both of our brains were going light years faster than our mouths could speak. We're going back and forth. We're dueling. Nobody in my class has any idea what the hell's going on.
Wow.
And what would happen later is my professor would actually invite some of his colleagues to watch, and he would ask me a question. We would go through this again, and then came back and said, what the hell? This 1L law student who's not even a student, he's freaking auditing the class, is laying these traps for you. You're springing them, trying to get traps on him. He sees it coming. He's like, what? We never even read about any of this.
Oh my
Our
God.
third L students can't do this.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, welcome to freaking dyslexia.
Mhm.
All right. And just to give you another example of how unfair this is, when I got, after I went back to the education department and with Dr. Holichka's report, and she really recommended they look forward to this. Now the state was like, darn, we have to do something with this. So I had to connect it to another professor. His name was, there's only one in Western New York at the time that made any
Mm.
sense. His name was Professor James Collins.
Mhm.
He wrote a book called Strategies for Struggling Writers.
Right.
uh, $1.5 million grant from the U.S. Education Department. Found 3 default writing strategies: the copying, visualization, narrative. So I said, okay, that makes perfect sense. I'm going to extend your work from mild dyslexia to severe dyslexia. Here's what it is. and people said it was going to take years to get his approval, if ever. I got it in less than 2 weeks.
Mhm.
He said, excellent, A plus. And within 6 months, I got 15 grand from the university. And then within a couple of years, we got the funding from the state Senate.
Nice.
So it's just exceedingly, people are like, how did you do this in under 2 weeks? It takes years. I said, there are certain advantages for being dyslexic.
Mhm. Mhm. Many people believe dyslexia is only a reading problem. What is really happening in the brain?
What's really going on, again, we're looking at the brain scan, is everybody's trying to get the back part of the dyslexic brain to do things.
Mm.
There's nothing going on there. So I just ignore it. So you're in sports. So the best way I like to give an analogy, uh, what sport are you really horrible at? For me, it's basketball.
Mhm.
What sport do you just stink at?
Soccer.
Soccer. Okay. I want you to imagine we are going to get you the best soccer coach on the planet,
Mhm.
and you're going to get the best soccer equipment. You're going to get the best training for 6 months. And then we're going to give your competition, they're going to have to use used Walmart equipment. Okay.
Mhm.
Junky stuff. And then you're going to go up against them. Is it going to matter? Or are you
No.
still going to lose badly?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's kind of like dyslexia. So your traditional kindergarten through high school, that part of the brain, we got nothing going on. You can't accommodate it. It's just going to be a mess. So actually, so you can accommodate it at 75,000 a year for 5 years. Like, okay, that does
Mhm.
work, but most of us don't have access to that sort of money. So what the solution is to look at the overactive front part of the brain. And according to Yale, that deals with two areas. It's called word analysis followed by articulation.
Mhm.
So typically what happens is I'll have parents come to me and say, my elementary school child is writing essentially randomly placed misspelled words. They can't read. Nobody knows how to fix this. So what I'd like to do is take about 10 minutes to answer your questions, to actually show you how this is solved in real life, to solve what parents can't do for years and show you how to fix it in about 10 minutes.
Right.
Can we go ahead and can we do that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So have you ever known an elementary school dyslexic kid really well, or not really?
Yes, I did many times. When I was
Okay.
coaching, yeah, many times.
Okay. I want you to think about a specific kid, preferably around 9 or 10. Do you
Mm.
remember that kid?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Okay. You need to change their name to protect their privacy.
Mhm.
And so what's the name of this? What's the made up name of the kid?
Max.
Max. What was Max's speciality? What was his area of extreme interest and ability?
Since it was sailing, Max was very good in terms of visualization. He can
Right, but he
visualize.
really loves sailing.
He does. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to
Sailing.
keep it that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry.
so his favorite thing was sailing.
Yes.
So we're keeping this very simple. So he loves sailing. So what we're going to do is I'm going to teach you now in the next 10 minutes how to solve this problem for Max.
Mhm.
Okay, and just so everybody knows, how much education do you have in teaching dyslexics to overcome their writing issues?
Almost none.
Okay, so after
Zero.
this 10 minutes, you will be more qualified than the most special ed teachers in the world.
Let's do
Okay,
that.
so here we go. So just so everybody knows what we're doing, I'm just going to go back to the science again.
Mhm.
We are going to take Max. We're not going to work on the back part of the brain because he has nothing going on. We're
Mhm.
going to move to the front
To
part,
the
which is
front
two and
part.
a half times overactive.
Mhm.
And Yale said this is done by word analysis followed by articulation. That's what this part of the brain does.
Mhm.
So what we're going to do is you're going to first you're going to open up a laptop computer with a real keyboard, not an iPad, not an iPhone, and certainly not handwriting.
Mhm.
And then you're going to type out hero plus sign. What are we talking about? And then Max is going to copy that. Now, but he can't copy, it's not allowed. Professor James Collins Now we have hero plus sign. What are we talking about? We're going to swap out hero for Max's name. So now we got Max plus sign. What are we talking about? Then we're going to go to a list of 10 things Max really, really likes, and then 10 things he really, really dislikes. At the top of that list of what he really, really likes is sailing. So we got Max plus sign. What are we talking about? We're going to swap out what are we talking about for sailing. So we got Max plus sign sailing. See how we got there?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm going to try to fool you with two of the simplest questions you've ever been asked. Once, if you've answered these exactly, it works. If it doesn't, you're going to have an epiphany in what dyslexia really is. Do you think I can fool you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Interesting.
So we got, okay. So here it is. This is the system. We got Max plus sign sailing. We have to swap out the plus sign for a word. Here's my very specific question. Does Max like or dislike sailing?
Max likes sailing.
Yes, but that's not what I asked.
So what did you ask?
Okay, let's go back to it. I said, does Max like or dislike sailing?
Intriguing.
So what's the answer?
I'm lost here.
Okay, so I have you nice and confused.
Yes, completely.
Are you
You
are
got me
you
there.
ready for your epiphany?
Go ahead.
Okay. I asked, does Max like or dislike sailing? You did what almost every educated person does.
Mhm.
You took the word like, added an S to make it a proper sentence.
I see.
Why did you do that? Because let's go back to the science.
To the
You're doing
science,
this in the
yeah.
back part of your brain where you have
Yeah.
massive neuroactivity. This is automatic for you. Max has nothing going on back there, essentially. He doesn't know how to add the S.
I see. Yeah.
Okay. So how would the $75,000 school deal with this? They use an Orton Gillingham multi-structured language approach, which means they use seeing, touching, hearing, everything available to figure out how to do this. And that's why the student-to-teacher ratio is so tiny, 4-to-1 or 5-to-1. And this just takes forever. Okay? And that's how they do it. But let's use modern science. So we're going to take things from the back part of the brain where he's got nothing going on and move it to the front part, where we're doing word analysis to start with. So what we do, if I asked Max this, he would have said like, because that's exactly what I asked. And then he would have put like in exchange with a plus sign. Max like sailing. Here's how we get him to actually write it out correctly. I'll say, Max, read what you wrote out loud. Max like sailing. Max, does that sound generally correct? He's going to say no. I'm going to say, Max, fix it. Max likes sailing. We practice that for the other 9 likes and 10 dislikes.
And
Now,
10
do you see
dislikes.
how that's a very simple form of word analysis?
It is. It is.
Okay. Then we're going to go because reason 1. Do you see that the reasons are a simple form of articulation? Okay. So we've now moved from the back part of the brain to the front part. Give me a simple reason why Max liked sailing.
He loved water. He loved the connection with water with sea.
Max liked sailing because he liked the connection with the water and the sea. Now, do you see how we have a whole mess of misspelled words?
Yeah.
Okay, here's how we fix that. Number 1, we got to deal with the grammar because teachers don't know what to do when they get randomly placed misspelled words. They can deal with the little stuff and the medium stuff. They're excellent at it. So how we fix that is we ask Max to read what he just wrote out loud. Forget about spelling for now. Doesn't sound generally correct. If he says no, you say fix it and to keep doing it until it's fixed. Now the teachers can deal with the grammar. Now the spelling we're just going to fix. We tell Max to drop a period. For every time he misspells a word, he has to retype the entire sentence. And he's going to say, I'm not going to make that mistake again. And he's going to keep making it again and again, between 3 and 13 times typically. And each time he's going to concentrate harder and harder. I'm not going to make that mistake. And he keeps making it. And he concentrates harder and harder until he gets it correct. that deep concentration is where the magic happens in the front part of his
Mhm.
brain.
Mhm.
So we're going to do that until everything's spelled correct for the next 9 likes and 10 dislikes. And then for reason one, reason two, all 20 sentences. Reason one, reason two, and reason three, all 20 sentences until everything's spelled correctly. Now, what you've done is you've taken your kid from writing a bunch of randomly placed misspelled words to writing 3 reasoned sentences with decent grammar and correct spelling. Here's the other little secret. If you can write it, they can read it. If the kid can write it, they can read it.
Right.
So the reading has also improved significantly. It's that simple.
Wow. Thank you, Russell, for sharing that exercise. It is simple, not obvious at the start, but it is simple. And
Well,
that,
if you go back and look at, again, here's the parts of the brain. The front part is
Mhm.
2.5 times overactive. It deals with word analysis followed by articulation. That's how you apply it.
And how do you explain why so many dyslexic individuals excel mainly in graduate school or in complex analytic fields?
Oh, that because the most important thing when you're dealing with us is that we are academic specialists,
Mm.
not generalists. So let me give you an example. I just want everybody to understand that the following case was an edge case. It was unique.
Mhm.
I never saw this before Casey. I will never see this after Casey. I met Casey at the end of 5th grade. She was 10 years old. She turned 11 over the summertime. She was reading and writing at the 2nd grade level. And Casey wanted to do reading first. I said, okay, I'm not fighting. I'm not fighting you. It's not efficient, but that's what she wanted. So she was interested in Theodore Roosevelt. So I assigned her this little book called The Rise of Theodore Roosevelt, all 900 pages of it. This is, depending on who you ask, 10th grade to first year college level, think 15 to 18. She's reading like she's, 7. So Casey went to her room. This is her choice.
Mhm.
Worked 3 hours a night for the next 6 months, and most of the days during the summertime. At the end of that, you could turn to this random page, point to that random word, and she would tell you the dictionary definition. She jumped 8 grade levels in 6 months,
Wow.
and I worked with her for 15 minutes a week.
Wow. Fascinating.
Oh, well, that's just the beginning of it. Casey's mom came to me and said, is this just for books that she likes? I said, okay, let's try something she doesn't like, which I assigned her this.
Mm.
Walt Disney, The Triumph of the American Imagination, all 1,000 pages of this. The second universal theme of what makes the Disney magic normally takes my students 1 to 3 years to find. Casey found it in 3 months. When I asked her, what happened when we went from a book that you loved to a book that you can't stand, she said her motivation dropped about 50%. The most motivated kid I ever worked with. Here's why this is so important. Most normal kids will drop 75 to 90%. So anytime you operate outside of their speciality, their motivation's almost zero. I mean, it's just way down. And that's why education fails, because our educational system wants us to become well-rounded until we specialize in grad school
Mhm.
where we excel. The other issue is if you ask a dyslexic in grad school, in your for your when you're for your brain, do you have ideas flying around your head for your speciality at light speed but with little to no organization? They're going to say yes. So the solution is to force the dyslexic brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output. Let me just give you a quick example on that. Imagine you were asked this question. You'll automatically know what to do. What effect did Martin Luther King's famous I Have a Dream speech have on the American Civil Rights Movement in the 1960s? You would know automatically, okay, let's go look up Dr. King, look up the speech, and then you just know how to write the paper.
Mhm.
But for a dyslexic, it's like grabbing fog. There's nothing there. So we have to ask a specific to a general question. What compelled Martin Luther King to want to give his famous speech? We find that answer. That answer gives us a question, which gives us an answer, which gives us a question, gives us an answer. That forces the dyslexic brain to organize itself using writing as a measurable output. So the short answer to this complicated question is we have to force the dyslexic brain to organize itself so that we can process information in a linear sequential way, because the front part of our brain is just so active, there's just no organization.
No
That's the
organization.
problem with
Yeah.
dyslexia.
I hear you, and yeah, it's fascinating, fascinating. Thanks for sharing all that insight and knowledge. So far I learned so much. You know, just jumping or shifting gears slightly about what we talked about so far, and let's talk about designing a learning system. So, at some point, you shifted Russ from asking, why do I struggle, to asking, how can I design a better learning system? When did that change occur?
It took years. After I presented in New York City, that initial study. So just what people what we did. I went back to my old high school. I was funded by the state. We took the super motivated kids, the super intelligent kids. They were juniors and senior in high school, and they were reading and writing at the middle school level. So one class period a day for the school year, we increased their writing to the average range of entering graduate students. They all went on to college. They all graduated, GPAs at 2.5 to 3.6 on a 4.0 scale. We were 3x as successful as the best dyslexic college at the time, which was a 2-year transfer college. And it was less than 1% of the cost. Cost New York State taxpayers less than $900 a kid. So when I presented in New York City, two things came out. Number one, I went in there cocky because I thought I just solved dyslexia. Well, wow, was I mistaken? I spoke to the senior professors, and they said, you had 2 students this last year who started off at the middle school level and then writing at around the 70th percentile of entering grad students. We don't care. We want the craft of research. And I was like, the craft of what? It's a book that came out in 1995 by the University of Chicago, designed to teach their PhD students to write doctoral dissertations.
Yeah.
It's context, getting everybody on the same page, coming up with an original problem statement that needs to be solved, that you actually can do, and then a unique solution. And I said, you want me to teach this to dyslexic high school kids before they go to college? They said, yes. Just understand, no private school in the United States teaches this material at the high school level. It's too evolved. So then I go and I present to the teachers, and they said, excellent. Does this work for normal kids? And I said, absolutely not. They said, come back when it does. So I came back 8 years later. That's how long it took me to get that. So, yeah. So what I initially came up with was I had to put both of those on the same track. So I started off with context when it came to the craft of research, and I divided that into simple context and advanced context. And so when I talk to the teachers, I want to know, to the gen ed teachers, and I'm sure this works everywhere in the Western world.
Right.
I asked the teachers, what is it that you need from me? And they said, until we can get these kids to write a basic 5-paragraph essay, we're talking 9-10-year-olds, we don't, at a C level, we don't know what to do. I said, okay, if I can get you the 3 body paragraphs, can you do the thesis and the conclusion? They said, yes. So I said, okay, that's what we'll do. So the curriculum that I came up with, I'm going to give you an example of how well this works. We follow what I just told you. The kid's speciality during the intervention period. Then you can put them back in normal classes. By intervention period, I mean we're going to take them from where they are to grade level or above the reading and writing. So we start off in a speciality, what they really like. We get an audio book and a normal book. Then we move on. We teach them from the specific to the general, and then word analysis followed by articulation. So people want an example, like, does this even work? I said, okay, the example, it's in the book that I'm about to come out with called If You Can Write, You Can Read. And the person that I'm going to give you an example of, her name is Kimberly. We met on Facebook on December 27th of 2024. She's a homeschooling religious mom with 5 kids who has some college. She, using traditional methods, taught her other 4 kids to read and write brilliantly. Not average, but way above average. She failed miserably with her 10-year-old son, Reed. She just spent $700 a few weeks before we talked to have the state of Ohio test her kids. Reed was reading at the 11th percentile, writing at the 4th percentile. Kimberly was ashamed, embarrassed, very concerned about his future. So I worked with her for half an hour a week for the rest of the school year. She worked with Reed for an hour and a half a week, three 30-minute segments. Most parents do 10 to 15-minute sessions. At the end of the school year, which was in June, he had an increase, which I'm not telling you about because over the summertime, Reed's friends came to him and said, Reed, we want you in public school to be with us socially. So in the first part of August, he was in a public school getting retested. Mom's miles away, much better data. Call it 8.5 months later. His reading went from the 11th percentile to the 64th. His writing went from the 4th percentile to the 65th. His grammar jumped to the 97th percentile.
Wow.
Now, what happened? I talked to Kimberly in late February. She said Reed has been mainly getting A's and B's. They had a tremendous family tragic event. So he just stopped doing his English. He stopped turning in his English projects. So that's currently down to a C plus. Once he turns them in, it'll probably be a B minus or a B. Even if it was all C's, which clearly it is not, this would have been a successful case because Kimberly did what every mom dreams of. And in less than 9 months, she did what took the best private schools years to do. And she did it at home in a fraction of a time. Wow. That's how powerful this is.
Wow. Yeah. It's powerful because I'm trying to picture or put myself in her shoes. I mean, educating her kids, beside of all the tasks she has at hand, looking after the household and things like that. And she did it in amazing, absolutely amazing. You highlighted the concept of word analysis before articulation, and you explained that. Mm-hmm. Why is the sequence of learning so crucial?
Well, I mean, I'm just, every time I'm going through this process, I learn to go back to the science. Mm-hmm. Again, this is Yale's book, and this is it. The front part of the brain is 2.5 times overactive. Mm. I just looked at that, and it says word analysis followed by articulation. So I said, okay, well, if Yale is telling me, the number one book in my field is telling me that part of the brain that's 2.5 times overactive, that's the way to do it. I'm not fighting it. I'm taking it. What I found as I went through the process is that, number one, as Casey was the example, during the intervention period, we have to focus on the kid's speciality, or they're just not going to do the freaking work. That's what I found. Number two, we got to teach them from the specific to the general, because that's how the dyslexic brain works. I got that from university professors. Mm. And then 3, we just do word analysis followed by articulation. And I just you follow that model, and I just showed you how successful that is. Yeah. But to kind of expand on your question, what I just told you works really great for 9 and 10-year-olds. Mm. At this point, a lot of people will come back and say, well, what about high school kids? What about middle school kids? What about college students? What about adults? And I would say, well, I have my original program, but that's for the super motivated and the super intelligent, which is a very small percentage of the population. So when you're looking at addressing that one, what you need to do is just do a more advanced form of the original process. So I want you to imagine that this is another thing that your parents can do tonight. Let's say you have a high school kid and they're writing nowhere near where they're supposed to. I want to show you how to do, in about the same amount of time, how to do the most part of an advanced body paragraph so you can really understand where this goes. Is that all right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So the best way I like to describe this starting off with is a movie review. Trust me, this is just the best way of explaining it after me doing this a couple hundred times. Mm-hmm. I want you to think about a movie that everybody has seen, that you think is one of the best of all time, that you know really well. What's that movie?
Oof, that's a tough question.
Oh, this one will be full of tough questions. We're moving down the
Yeah.
high school level now.
There is so many great movies.
But
Yeah.
just remember the big card. You want one that everybody's
Yeah,
seen
that
that you know really
everyone, yeah,
well.
everybody's seen. I don't know. Let's say Star Wars. Here we go.
Star
Star
Wars.
Wars.
Which one? There's three. Which one
Oh,
are the three originals?
let's start with the latest one.
Okay, I'm going back to the original ones from George Lucas, not the modern
Yeah,
Disney
yeah,
nonsense.
George Lucas. Yes, yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
so let's talk about Return of the Jedi.
yeah.
Okay,
Classic.
so yes, so here's what I want you to do. I want you to tell me in one word, one universal theme, the best word that represents that entire movie.
That's tough, man. Hope.
Hope. Okay, now when when Return of the Jedi came out,
Mhm.
what would typically happen in America is some Ivy League educated person in a major publication would write a movie review. And they would literally tell you this happened, this happened, and this happened.
Mhm.
It's like you recorded a football match and then you come back to watch it and somebody already told you what the score was.
Mhm.
What's the point in watching it? They
That-
ruined it. So yeah, you've seen that all the time. So here's how we write a movie review like an adult.
Mhm.
You would take your universal theme of hope,
Mhm.
and then you would pick out the main actors that you think this movie revolved around, and you would ask, how did they deal with the universal theme of hope? And you'd write on that. How did the director do? How did the screenwriter do? That's your movie review focus. Then people can read it and say, do I want to see this movie or do I not want to see this movie? If I do, now I know what to look for, but you haven't ruined it for me. You've enhanced my experience. Here's the problem. The universal theme of hope is so broad that you can only write a movie review in the broadest of strokes. You can't laser focus because it's just too broad of a universal theme to use it as a lens for anything more than a broad brush. Make sense?
Makes sense. Yeah.
Now, I'm going to traumatize your audience. I'm going to take you back to high school
Mhm.
and Shakespeare.
Mhm.
Okay. For some of us, that's traumatizing. For some, it's joyful. But the reason why I'm doing this is because Shakespeare was the ultimate in the English speaking world of communication, universal themes. Just nobody comes close.
Mhm.
So if you look at a standard Shakespearean play, you'd have a hero.
Mhm.
The hero would want to do something.
Mhm.
It's based on one or more universal themes. There's an ultimate villain, which is a person, a
Yes.
concept, or some combination there too. And they would try to stop the hero from accomplishing their goals. For Act One, the tension would start building. It would accelerate in Act Two and then resolve in Act Three.
Actually.
Sound familiar?
Yeah. Classic.
Okay. Now we have to simplify that to start going into evolved paragraphs. What I'm about to do, I showed you a very simple version of the initial context. Now we're going to do the advanced context from the craft of research, all into one. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the script in this case for the Return of the Jedi,
Mhm.
and we're going to find out a hero, and then in that hero, the hero is going to want to do something. We're going to then write multiple paragraphs on what the hero wants to do. For each sentence, we're going to pick the most important word.
Mm.
And then we're going to line up all the most important words. And then we're going to pick the one that best represents what the hero wants to do. And that's going to be our base universal theme. Here's the problem. Just like what you did in the movie review with the word hope, this word is going to be too broad. We can't laser focus. It's a horrible lens.
Mhm.
So what we have to do is then to tell the dyslexic kid, you're going to take that base universal theme, you're going to type out the word, and then you're going to go to Merriam-Webster's online dictionary, and you're going to pick out your definition, and then you're going to type out the definition. And I can hear your audience now, but my kids won't do it. And you are correct. If you're outside their speciality, if you're inside their speciality, they will do this.
Yeah.
That is, again, that is the most. Remember, Casey dropped 50% in motivation when we went from what she liked to what she didn't like. Normal kids, you're down 75 to 90. You have to be in that you have to be in that the speciality for the intervention period.
Mhm.
Okay.
And
So go ahead.
yeah, when the first time you started testing and using your system, were you surprised by how quickly you improved?
Yes, but let me just walk you through this because this is critical.
Yeah, go
All
ahead.
right. So I want your audience to understand how they can use this with their kids. So once you have that universal theme, um, once we have the base universal theme, then what we do is we go to the thesaurus,
Mhm.
and you can do 5 words, 10 words, the entire level, multiple levels. For each word, you're gonna if they don't know it, because here's the key thing: the front part of the brain deals with word
Yeah.
analysis. If you don't know what the word means exactly, you cannot do word analysis.
Mm.
Okay. So the kid types out, let's say you pick 5 or 10 words. They type out the word and the definition for those 5 or 10. They're looking for the word that best matches what's in their head. Once you have what's in their head, that is now a very specific universal theme. It's never going to be perfect, but you have now a much more specific universal theme that you can now laser focus. Define the ultimate villain who can best stop the hero from accomplishing their goals. I normally start off with people and eventually get to concepts. So now we have the hero, the universal theme, and the villain. And we put that into a basic sentence. So now here's the key point. As the kid's typing out the word and the definition, at some point, they're going to do it so many times, they just know the word and the definition. I've had kids do this at 11 and 12. And by the time they're 16 or 17 and taking the SAT or ACT to go into high school, the verbal section is essentially a vocabulary test. So now they remember 70, 80% of the words. And this is how we jump the reading level up grade levels, because after a while, they will know hundreds of these words. So now that we have that, do you see how that's an advanced form of of word analysis?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now we're going to do an advanced form of articulation. So then we're going to come up with because, and then we're going to add 3 really good reasons, best we can. For each reason, we're going to reduce that to a 1-word universal theme that's simple. And then we're going to go to the script of the Return of the Jedi. We're going to find a quote at the beginning of the movie, a quote at the end of the movie, and we're going to put them together. Then from those 2 quotes, we're going to form our topic sentence. Now, do you remember in college that when you took your education, do you remember that going from the topic sentence to your data, it never flowed very well? Do you
Yes.
remember that?
Yeah, yeah.
Have you ever thought of applying a warrant to a body paragraph?
In my case, yes and no.
Okay.
You're
When
right.
it comes to a warrant, most people outside of PhD students don't know what that is. All right. Some do, most don't. What it is it's a base part of the craft of research. It basically is connecting a topic sentence and the data by answering a how and why question.
Yeah.
So we have our topic sentence. We now answer a how and why question, and we connect it to the 2 quotes. Now, when we teach things in our paid courses, we finish up the rest, but that'll give you an idea. Here's how powerful this is, and this is the last point on this part of the discussion. I had a 7th grade, 13-year-old dyslexic student who was doing this, and I decided to take his senior brothers. He was 17, a high school senior, in advanced placement English, and he took a paragraph. I sent it to a university professor. The university professor said, "Oh, that kid's using a warrant. This must be at the college level. This is technically more evolved than the AP English high school kid because he used a warrant." When his older brother found out, he flipped out, couldn't believe it. And I told his younger brother, my client, "Isn't that beautiful? That accelerated his self-confidence like you can't believe."
Mm.
And that's how you do that. That's the basic part of doing advanced body paragraphs.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing how the system you put in place, how it triggers and help youngsters with dyslexia to discover the inner qualities that they have. And
Yeah, but just think, in a little bit over an hour, I just showed you how to do basic sentences. I just showed you how to do a more evolved body
more, yeah,
paragraph.
yeah.
That's how simple this is.
And what are we today?
What do you mean today? Where are we? What
Where
are
are
we
we
today?
today based on the system you just described in terms of implementing this kind of system universally?
Well, I've been. We've met on Podmatch. I've been the number one guest. This is my third month doing it. I've been in the top 6 for the past 7 months. This is my 200th, 11th podcast since April. We're trying to get the word out because it's such a horrific mess. But as you can imagine, it's not easy. So I decided I needed another dramatic example. So I just kind of gave you the context version. I met another podcast host and his son, Grayson. Just to show you how far we've taken this. Grayson is in the 99th percentile for math and science. He is not dyslexic in the least. He's just your typical super genius student.
Yeah.
Grayson wants to get his PhD, work for NASA, our space agency, and to terraform Mars. To do that, he needs to publish in an academic journal, which means we have to not only show him what we just discussed, we have to show him how to do a problem statement and a solution. And we're in the process of doing that. How old do you think Grayson is?
10, 11?
Exactly, he's 10. So the process that I just showed you, his father's racing through that. All right. I already know what he needs to do for the publication. So we're going to walk him through all that, and we assume he'll be done probably at 13 or 14. So what will happen at 14 is we'll send him in. We're going to submit the article for publication. It will be rejected. So once it's finished and it's rejected, we're going to introduce him to a senior professor in that area, have Grayson go in and say, here's my article I want to publish. It was rejected for all these reasons. Can you help me so I can get this published? And watch the professor's jaw drop, because this is a decade before he's supposed to be doing this. So even if it took another 5 years, who cares? He gets published. Then in his PhD, he does it a few more times. Then he's an excellent candidate for NASA.
Yeah. I'll go back to the case study you talked about earlier about the homeschooling and the mother helping her her child improve, and it did improve dramatically using your system. Does it suggest, Russ, that the system itself is more important than the institution?
Yeah, you have to understand why this is such heck on the. I'm just not going to call it just dyslexia, but the neurodiverse. School systems are not trying to be hard on us, but typically their students have massive neural activities in the back part of the brain. We have massive neural activities in the front. So they designed their learning system for 80+% of the population, which it works just fine for. So I want to answer your question. I always come back to this one. I want you to think back to your education. If you did 2 things, if you planned your studying properly, gave yourself enough time, and then you planned it properly, and then you worked really hard, you either did really well or really, really, really well. And if you didn't do those 2 things, things did not go well for you. Can you see how it's basically about that simple?
Yeah.
Okay. For a dyslexic, it is so extreme. If we were in college and you're taking the standard 5 classes a semester, and the dyslexic says, I'm just going to take 1 and work 5 times harder than you, they'll probably still do worse because we're in the wrong part of the brain. So the schools are not trying to be hard on us, but they like following their typical process, which is to make us well-rounded education before we specialize. And they love going from the big picture down to eventually to details. And the dyslexic's the exact opposite. So it was like me asking you about what you were bad at, and you said soccer.
Yeah.
Now, if I told you we would get you, again, the best coach in the world and practice for 6 months, then your ability to play soccer for your age level and your financial future depends on it, you're going to be homeless and starving. So the school is trying to teach a dyslexic in a way and using processes that are our absolute weakness. And you simply can't accommodate that.
Yeah. Yeah. For parents listening to this episode, what practical steps can they take?
Well, the first thing is, if you're dealing with kids that are really young, and I'm talking 5 or 6, Just Google Yale, contact them, ask them, how do I get my kid tested? It's inexpensive. Once you find out that they're dyslexic at that age, you have to be merciless and and literally it's almost, you just have to go in and be absolutely ruthless with your school system. Contact Yale. They will tell you how to educate my kid, and we got to get this done by the time they're the end of third grade or when they're 8. Because if you don't, then you either have these $75,000 a year private schools or what I've described. I tend not to work with kids until they're 9. All right, because the older they are, the quicker they pick this up. And if you wait until they're 9 or above, we can show you how to do it. But it's really one of those two choices. Otherwise, it just keeps getting worse, and they keep getting more and more frustrated. And I can tell you now, when you go out into the workforce with artificial intelligence, if you don't know how to use that and you're not you just can't be employable. And just, a quick note on artificial intelligence. When OpenAI came out with their $200 a month pro plan in December of 2024, I bought it that day. AI was meant for us. And if you know the craft of research, you will be excellent at working with AI.
Fantastic. There is a topic I would like to discuss with you maybe later on about the learning methods between textbooks and using digital solutions. So, yeah. Russ, I want to take a moment and share something really personal to me. I was never officially diagnosed, but looking back, I strongly believe, and listening to you, since the intro chat, I strongly believe I had dyslexia while growing up. And not only that, I also showed clear signs of dyscalculia. And for listeners that who might not know, dyscalculia is a learning difference that impacts how person processes numbers. It can make basic arithmetic, mental maths, sequencing, and even understanding time or direction. Usually, it's kind of hard. From the elementary school to college, I worked really hard to hide that issue. Really, really hard. I developed coping strategies. I over-prepared, memorized quite a lot, and avoided situation where I might be exposed. And I can say it was hard and brutal as well. It was tough and sometimes brutal. And I carried that all alone. And I succeeded academically, but I had to work much harder than others and never spoke about it publicly. This is the first time, Russ. First time. I'm 55 years old and I'm talking about it openly. So when I hear your work, your experience, struggles, breakthroughs, it really resonated deeply with me. So for people listening right now, Russell, who might be struggling silently because of pride, because of whatever reason, children, teenagers, or even us adults, what would you say to them?
Well, first of all, if you don't mind me using you as a guinea pig, I can ask you 3 questions, and then based on those answers, I can tell you roughly where you are. Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So the first thing is, I need you to tell me, you got several, but just pick one. Doesn't matter which one. What's your speciality? What do you really like? What are you really good at?
One thing I'm good at, it's creating concept from nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Creating concepts from nothing.
Yeah.
So when you're thinking about that, do you have ideas flying around your head at light speed, but with little to no organization now or sometime in the past?
Millions of ideas.
Yes.
Millions of ideas, I can tell you that. Yeah.
Now, the next question, if you answer yes, it tends to freak people out. Okay? If no, then that's fine. The next question is, this is you or it's not you. There's really nothing in between. Imagine you're thinking about creating all these new ideas from nothing. It's your speciality. You want to write about it. Fingers, keyboard. The idea is in your head. You take your fingers, you put it on the keyboard. When you do that, the fingers hit the keyboard. Does the idea in your head fly out of your head, leaving you with an empty brain? Is that you or not really?
Yes, it's me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you find that it's weird that I knew that about you?
Maybe not.
Okay. Well, if we had professors from the best universities in Europe, and I just asked that question, and that's how you answered it, they would be scratching their heads in complete confusion because they don't understand the underlying cause of what dyslexia is. Okay, last question, and then I'll tell you your profile. I want you to think back to probably elementary school. It's probably around 8, 9, 10 years old. There was did somebody come to you and say, if you can't perform this academic task, we're going to hold you back for a year and we don't know how to help you? Did that happen to you or no?
No, it didn't. It didn't.
Okay.
Like I said, it was tough. It was brutal, but I had to work. Sorry, I had to work my ass very hard.
Yes,
You
you had to work. So what you just told me, and this is again just for treatment purposes only, but what I found is it's generally about 90+% accurate, is you are in fact probably dyslexic. And if you went and dropped $5,000 on a neuropsychological evaluation, it would confirm it and give you the details.
Yeah, I remember in the elementary school, at some point I hated math, really hated it, and I could do everything to not show up, basically, until one year I got this lovely teacher, and I think she figured out my issue, and she made me love math as a subject. I had her for 3 years. Then she left, got another teacher, and I hated math again.
That does happen. I will tell you, this is what I'm about to tell you is going to make a lot of educators unhappy. But you've obviously had a successful career. What I try to tell educators is we have to solve the reading and writing issues because, as you know, you do a lot of it in your career. But if you're having a math issue as an adult, we've invented calculators. They're on our watches, they're on our phones.
Yeah.
All right. What I found with math, to be honest with you, is just, my background in math. I was a really good math student through high school. And then when I hit calc, I wanted to do what my uncle did. He was from 65 to 95. He did all the cool stuff in the space program. I failed Calc 1 and Calc 2 7 times.
Right.
My proudest grade in college was a D+ in calculus-based physics. So what I'm trying to tell people is when I actually, as an adult, only used the math I was taught was to teach students how to do math so they can teach other kids and not everybody's a STEM person, science, technology, engineering. The people that belong in that, they're like Grayson. They're just born to it. Most of us are going to do other things. So let's solve the reading and writing issues. Now for you, just, with that third question, where that came from, it happens to a very few kids who have a much more severe case than you did. They're also incredibly intelligent, and they have a choice at this crossroads. This motivates them tremendously. So for that very small percentage, what happens is they're typically around 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. Somebody comes to them and says, if you can't pass the state assessments, this academic task, this whatever, we're going to hold you back. Now think about what that does to an elementary school kid, especially for girls. We're going to take you away from your friends and put you in with strangers. We're going to shame you publicly. And they freak out. They start putting so much pressure on themselves where if they don't pass this test, their family's going to hate them. They're going to lose their friends. It is clinically dangerous. And through that insane amount of pressure, which I don't think any kid should ever went through, I went through it. We eventually force ourselves to have an epiphany. And that allows us to pass the test. And then by the time they get to high school, that has happened so many times that it's second nature. So I would tell a kid, in high school, and I would know them because they're like an 85 student. They're like low end honor rolls, but they're still have a severe case of dyslexia. I would tell them, I know your secret. And they want their parents to leave the room because I talk with them online, and I tell them what happened, like I told you what happened, and they freaked out. They start crying. They never want their parents to know. Why am I telling you this? Because in my original program, those super motivated kids, the spelling and grammar increased from middle school to grad level. The teacher did hardly spend any time on spelling and grammar. I knew, because this was their best teacher, when she was teaching the body paragraphs and she starts teaching these kids that, they would just automatically know how to fix it themselves because they went through that hell. I talked to each of them after they were done with the course, and they all confirmed that happened to them in elementary school. So what you really need to understand from these series of questions is if you answered yes to the first one, that means you're ADD, ADHD, or mildly dyslexic. The treatment's the same, regardless of the three. If you answer yes to the first and the second, you're severely dyslexic. If you say that if the third thing happened, you're extraordinarily dyslexic, but also massively intelligent and massively motivated. And it just gives me a profile of where to start off. And I don't need parents to go out and spend $5,000 on a neuropsych exam. It's nice data to have. I certainly don't need it for treatment purposes. That just gives you an overview of how this generally works.
Yeah. You touched earlier you asked me a question about if I had the experience dealing with a dyslexic kid in the past in sport, and I did, And since this is sport podcast at its core, and I did work with many athletes, younger, struggled academically, I believe because of dyslexia. And from your perspective, Russell, what do you think sports environments often showcase strength in dyslexic thinkers?
Well, it allows us to, number one, socialize and do really, really well. Like, for example, with me, I was a distance runner in high school. I would go out and run a little under 11 miles in 57 minutes up and down hills. That's a bit over around 17 kilometers, 18 kilometers in an hour. And what it does is it frees us to focus on what we're really good at. It allows us to finally get out of this academic difficulty we're in, because the schools are designed to be exactly against us. And it allows us to build, most importantly, to figure out how to work with others as a group and to succeed as a team. Let me give you an example, like in the United States. When I was in high school, I did something very unusual. I joined the local umpires union for American baseball. Most of these guys were 30s, 40s, 50s, and I was, this 17-year-old kid,
right?
And I got paid very well, but it was a union umpiring position. So I went down to the inner city of Albany, and that was run by off-duty retired cops. And here's what they used baseball for. If the kid even looked at me sideways, they got corrected instantly. They use sports to have these kids learn how to grow up to be respectful people that knew how to deal with things. And here's what they told me. They said the kids that they have that stays through high school, they either go out and get a job right away, go to a community college, get a job, or go to four-year college and get a job. They're successful people. They're there to make sure that these kids who are in a very difficult environment, a lot of them are single parents, very economically challenged neighborhoods, a lot of crime, and they are there to use sports to teach them how to be a good person and how to just really focus on teamwork and everything else that'll carry them through, because the vast majority of them are never going to make it in baseball. And that's what I always found sports to be.
Fully agree with you. Now, listening to you, some coaches, they might see themselves like facing or having athletes with severe dyslexia, what can coaches do differently?
Well, let's just go back to the model again. Try to work in their speciality. You teach from the specific to the general, word analysis followed by articulation. So give me a sport that you're intimately familiar with, and let me walk you through with that one.
Let's say Formula One, motorsports.
Okay. Not simply driving. Give me something more like a sport. Not a guy sitting in a race car.
Yeah. Let's say swimming. Here we go.
Swimming. Okay. So when you're thinking about swimming, number one, you're in the kid's speciality.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to take the worst case. Are you familiar with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder?
Not really.
Okay. It's kind of like if dyslexia is severe, this is the milder version, but the kid literally can't sit still. They can't do anything.
Yeah.
If you're in their speciality, which is sports, which is swimming for this case, they're hyper focused.
Yeah, and right or wrong, we always frame that mainly boys, and I've seen it here. Quite often. We frame that under severe ADHD.
Yeah, but if you're in their speciality, they're hyper focused.
Yes.
So number one, the coach now has it much easier because they can actually get this kid to do things that they won't do in other things. What you need to do is find out as specifically as possible what's their favorite stroke, what's their favorite, and start there until they've mastered it. So let's say I'm just going to throw one random one out as breaststroke. Say we're going to work on the breaststroke. Okay. And then, but when you're teaching them, don't tell them, well, in general, with a breaststroke, we have to do this, starting off with a big picture and then going specific. You lost them because it's like grabbing fog. We have to start off with something ultra specific. Your kick, when your ankles are doing this at this level, you have to do this. Okay. When you're doing the frog kick. All right. And then go from the very specific, master that, and then go out slowly each step until it's mastered, until you get to the general. It's the exact opposite of how you'd coach any other kid.
It's like flipping the pyramid upside down.
Exactly.
Yeah, I see. Let's talk about the institutional barrier. So despite strong result of what you explained and tested, plus the case study, the various case study and examples you gave us, innovation in education often faces resistance. What barriers have you encountered?
Oh, all right. Let me tell you what happened.
Because we don't like change.
Number one, I want everybody to know, because I'm in the United States, my state did not put the current guy in the White House. We didn't do that. We voted for somebody that was rational.
And your state is?
New York State.
New York State.
We are the highest tax state in the United States. Sorry, California, we beat you. All right. We spend more per kid than anybody. We spend on average $32,000 a year per kid. Dyslexia add another $20,000 on top of that.
Right.
Okay. So you want to talk about resistance? Senator Brad Hoylman Segal, the chair of our Judiciary Committee in the Senate. Again, he's an Oxford. He's a Rhodes Scholar from Oxford. He's a Harvard Law grad. He looked at what happened with his daughter and said, "This is ridiculous." He's a very liberal guy. He's very much in the European sense about how the state should support these sort of things. So he had he passed a bill. The New York State Education Department had the top 49 people in the state spend a year on a dyslexia task force using how to use traditional methods. And that report came out in late December of 2024. Okay. So then they tried to implement it. And just so people understand the financial ramifications.
Right.
We're spending $32,000 a year per kid. We're spending an extra 20 grand on average for a dyslexic kid. For 10 years, that's 200 grand. We're talking untold billions of dollars. The solution was that they came up with using the traditional methods like the top private schools I was telling you about, was to hire 18,000 more teachers. at a cost of untold zillions of dollars, and the state found out we can't afford it.
And based on
And the teacher said,
and that
what's that?
decision based on what?
Well, the bill never got out of committee essentially to add 18,000 new teachers. And each teacher's getting paid, let's just call it $100,000. You can do the math.
Average.
We just don't have it. We
Yeah.
don't have the money.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and plus the training time would have been, forever. And the teachers unions went crazy saying, you dumped all this stuff on us. We just can't physically do it. So so what did the state do is they came up with something for $250,000 a year.
Mhm.
That's what they did. So what I did is I met one of the three teachers who was on that task force. Her name is Evelyn Whitebay. The state forced her on it. Here's how successful she was. Typically in New York State, about half the kids will pass our English assessment, give or take a few percentages.
Mhm.
Of dyslexics, it's about 10, give or take percentages. Evelyn had her dyslexic students score higher than the average of her school district. All right. So when for our book, for the student she went through, she was using an example where she was a court-appointed problem solver. She took a kid in less time, and instead of going up a couple of grade levels, he jumped up 6.6 grade levels
Right.
in just a matter of months. So we can literally go into a school district and teach what we discussed today, basic sentences through the evolved paragraphs. We can teach them that entire process in about 6 hours, not months, not weeks, one day.
One day. Half day.
One day. That's all it takes. So we are now in the process of putting this stuff online so that we can make it, more economically viable. We are just literally putting up our first course for professionals on how to do those basic sentences today. All right. We're putting it up on a learning platform called School, which is SKOOL.com. So once we get all of those up there, if we're dealing with, like really financially challenged areas, we could send people learn the online and then just come and do the online or in person to answer their questions for even less time.
Less time. Yeah.
This is not hard to. This is my frustration. Kimberly is a homeschooling mom, and she is brilliant, but she just had some college. In New York State, we require a bachelor's degree and a 2-year master's degree. And most of these teachers have a ton of experience. Typically, in a lot of school districts, there's hundreds of applicants per position. They're in the top 1% of their field. And yet Kimberly, in a fraction of the time, ran circles around them using this process. That's the frustration. It is so bad that I essentially just tell parents, just do it yourself. We will walk you through the process. And by the time you could have got done fighting with the school district, you would have already solved the problem. It's that ridiculous.
Russell, the resistance, is it more political, bureaucratic, or cultural?
I'm just going to go back to the science. And just again, this is most students, this is 80% of what the schools deal with. We got nothing going on back there. They set up a system that works beautifully for 80+% of the population, like we discussed earlier.
Yeah.
All you have to do is plan properly and work really hard, and it'll work for you. Dyslexics are so completely different that it goes against the institutional framework, and they say, well, we'll accommodate you. Like I said, I asked you that question about soccer, accommodate all you want. It's not going to really work.
All right. If a politician or a decision maker reach out and say, hey, Russell, could you redesign our education system for dyslexic learners?
But the thing is, we don't need. So here's what we really need to do. This is what I've learned, just nut and bolts in the system. I was told in my original study, I would go into the school, the teachers would do exactly what I say, and we would have clean data. The teacher in the original program, she's brilliant, her name was Susan Ford, said, I want to be a co-pilot. I don't want to be a passenger. The teachers freaking detest the PhDs because they have a master's degree and years of experience.
Mm.
They don't want to be told what to do and how to do it like their children. PhDs need that to get their clean data. The teachers want to adapt my process to who they teach and how they want to teach it. So I have made that possible. So we could have two teachers working with essentially the same general student population, teaching this wildly differently across the hallway, two different classrooms. So all we need to do is we just need to speak directly to the teachers. They're going to all come to me and say, Russell, there's a part of your curriculum that I just don't like. And I'm saying, fine, change it how to meet your teaching style and who you're working with, and you'll get similar results. I'm just here to give you the general process.
Mhm.
Parents have to do exactly what I tell them because this is not their profession. So for the leaders, that's all we need to do is to get Evelyn and me in front of them. We just got done teaching this in New York City to New York City public school teachers. I've been teaching them for 11 out of the past 12 years, and I missed 1 year because it was, COVID.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
But this is that simple. It's not that hard to do. It is harder to arrange the time than it is to actually go in and just completely show them what to do.
Mm. There was a study here a couple of months ago, beginning of 2025 here in Sweden, that the education level went down completely. It's a disaster, put it this way. So the government took a decision to invest and inject $100 million to bring back the textbooks, believe it or not. Because we invested so much on the digital solution, you name it, laptops, screens everywhere and things like that, starting from the kindergarten, all the way to college. So now they're bringing back the textbooks to every class, not ditching completely the digital or screens, but reducing to a minimum. Now, in the case of dyslexia, any advice, and you explained earlier beautifully, the best way to support is to have a screen and a keyboard. Any advice you would like to showcase or highlight here?
Yeah, I'm not talking about the 80+% Gen Ed kids. I'm talking about the neurodiverse. Doesn't really matter because here's the problem you're going to have with textbooks. Dyslexics like marking them up.
Mm.
So actually, it's kind of a negative. So what I would tell parents is go and get a Brother laser black and white printer, and do not order your cartridges from Brother. Order them from Amazon. Okay? Because
Good
then you
point.
can print this stuff out and they can mark it up all they want. So
Yeah.
I have had kids where, and I found, I'm just literally telling you, I found this amusing. The book was like 30 years old and it was falling apart, and the kid marked the living hell out of it. And the parent, they wanted to charge the parents for a new book. And I said, no, you pay them for what it was. It was a falling apart old book. But the kids are going to want to mark it up. What is good about having it on the computer screen is they can manipulate the text, which is more important. So that would not be of a particular benefit for dyslexic kids. And I'm going to tell you, as I said with Grayson, we work with the top super motivated gen ed students. It's not that the things are online, or it's not that it's printed out. If you're going to have it printed out, the kids are going to want to mark it up, which they can't do with a textbook. So it kind of defeats the purpose. You're kind of chasing the wrong thing. What you want to do, even with Grayson, what I found with him, let me just give you an example. And also, first of all, just so you know, in the United States, we admire Sweden greatly. Okay, we want to emulate you, okay, for how successful you are with your educational system. All right, so with Grayson, the same thing. When I'm talking about Mars, what I did is I went to I paid $200 a month for several models. I had a custom report created for him based on the peer-reviewed articles only on the history of Mars. He's 10. I put the reading level for like 14-year-olds and the comprehension for like an 18-year-old. Okay.
Right.
When we stepped outside of his interest in Mars, he's like, I don't care. It's not as bad as a dyslexic. It's not as bad as ADD or ADHD. You step outside of his interest and he just doesn't really care. He goes through the motions. So really, what you need to find out for an educational system is starting in middle and at the latest high school, try to shift more into what the kid's interest is, have learning objectives of what you're looking for. But now with advanced artificial intelligence to do it the correct way, we can now customize the kid's educational experience.
Right.
And when this is what gets me, because I spend at least an hour a day on AI, 6, 7 days a week, because I have to keep up.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise, what good is it solving the education for my kids and they can't get a job? So everybody's idea when it comes to artificial intelligence is they're scared of, oh, the kid will just go to ChatGPT and tell it how to write out a paper. And I had that argument with my kids' teachers. Number one, I tell them that advanced body paragraph I was telling you about,
Mm-hmm.
I don't start using AI until they're finished with that 5-paragraph essay.
Right.
And that we do that in middle school.
Yeah.
So once they reach high school, I will have the kids go and remember what I showed you. No quotes, no body paragraphs.
Mm.
And I would show them how the kid came up with the quotes for all their body paragraphs, where they used AI to just do the grunt work. Why does my kid have to go to a university library, peel off a stack of books, define something define something in a book and write it on a 3x5 card, the way that we did it in university? Why can't they just have the AI do that junk work? What's the purpose? So we show them then how they were constructed. They're guiding the AI. They can already read and write reasonably well because we already showed them how. And then we show them how to do. And I said, they have to know these skills in an applicable sense, because literally, if you know how to use AI, you are literally going to be 5-10 times more productive.
More productive. Yeah. Yeah.
And the companies just aren't going to pay you to do it the old way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the clash I get in with educators at all the time. But my kids are guiding it. It's like doing an advanced math proof.
Mm-hmm.
They're showing each of their steps.
Yeah.
They're just not telling it to write it up.
Yeah. There is resistance in terms of AI, even here. I remember just 2 years ago, it's been framed here like talking to my boys using AI and stuff like that. So it's been framed like within the educational system, if you focus too much on that, it's framed like cheating, like you're not doing proper work, proper homework, going to the library, like you said, flipping and checking stack of books and stuff like that. So that's what it is. And I feel it's more about fear than anything else, because AI is here and is here to stay, period. There is no discussion. Yeah.
Just so you know how fast it's accelerating, my workflow is really optimized for October 2025. When Opus 4.6 came out from Claude Anthropic, you could start having agents doing the work. Then in February, what worked in January is now out the window. In February, now you have the agents do it. And instead of doing a long prompt, it's now prompt at 4 different levels. And it's beyond me. And most people, I'm not turning over all that to the AI. Okay, and it's just accelerating now because it's just so much fast. Nobody's coding anymore. It's doing all the coding. But what I let me give you an example. One of my kids, his father hired me. He has a 3.22 GPA. He's a business major, but his father knew that he's not ready to go out into the workforce. He's been properly educated at the bachelor level. So I'm giving him customized Harvard business case studies on what he wants to go into. And I'm showing him how you use the craft of research, context, problem, solution. Just give you a quick example on this. I had a student who I taught in high school. He goes through college. He hates AI, never used it. Goes out into the workforce. Within a matter of weeks, he's teaching his peers how to use AI. Because he said he was given an assignment. And he was like, okay, what's the context? He went back and forth with the AI, figured it out. The same for problem, same for solution. And he actually delivered an actual solution to his peer. I'm sorry, to his boss. And now he shows his peers how to do it. For me personally, I'm working with another colleague that I met on Podmatch. He's a university professor. We're doing an article together. He sent me one question. In a matter of like 4 hours, I came back with a 25-page edited answer, including various policy considerations, all these other things. I directed it. I asked it what it should do. I did a deep research report, and I kept saying, no, that's not the angle I want to go. I want to go this way. And I just directed it, and he looked at it. He said, okay, this will keep me busy for the next month. He was expecting 2 to 3 pages. I sent him back 25. Very well edited, very well researched. That's how much faster that allowed me to do instead of spending a week I did in a matter of hours.
Yeah. Amazing. You explained, Russell, your frustrations earlier. What makes you hopeful?
Well, I just look at what happened with Kimberly, and she just solved the problem. All right, I look what Evelyn did, 6.6 grade levels in less than 6 months, using the same process, and just granted she's a master teacher. It's just a matter of we're doing podcast after podcast. My book's coming out within the next 2 months. Then I'm going to go ahead and look at doing a TEDx speech, and then go on in my area and hit the highest rated podcast. At sooner or later, this is going to get through to the politicians that this is a better, faster, cheaper way. I mean, what drove me nuts in New York State is I was literally funded by the New York State Senate. At the time, the State University of New York Research Foundation said this is the best program in the entire university. And then when they had the task force, I said, can we meet? Can I walk you through this? And they would never get back to me.
Sad.
Okay. I mean, I at that point, I threw up my arms and I just said, okay, parents, just do it yourself.
Do it yourself, yeah. Do it yourself. And sad. Anyway, you're listening to the Pre-Zero Sports Talk. For more conversations on sports leadership, faith, performance, and innovation from Sweden to the world, visit prezerosportstalk.com. It's time for our lightning round. Russell, we can talk about this topic for days, but I'm just mindful of the time here. So ready for speedy Q&A?
Yes, I am.
Skill everyone should learn, beside of AI.
What they should learn how to do is to type. Because what I found with dyslexics is handwriting is out. If they type, instead of writing the letter W and taking up all that cognitive space, they can just hit the key and do well. Now, just how I did it, I took a typing class. I went from the back of the book forward. Drove my teacher mad.
Right. Your favorite way to recharge after a long day or a long week?
Go for a swim for an hour and a half. I do that daily.
Love it. Nice. Fully agree. Most rewarding part of your work?
When the child that I work with is terrified of how they're going to do on a final exam, and they come back acing it. And I had one kid who said he forgot to study for his final, but I showed him how to go through the information in college. He went in and he said he got the highest grade in the class. He said, your stuff works.
Nice. A habit that improved your life?
Well, what I found was to structure your day based on your most productive time. So there are times in the day where that's where I sit down and I do my actual work. And I guard it jealously. So unless the client has an absolute emergency, I'm not available.
Something you're still curious about?
I'm curious about how we're going to take artificial intelligence and combine it more completely with the craft of research so that students, and to take it to what we have to younger and younger ages so that we can have the time to develop these more advanced AI prompting techniques. Because currently, as I said, it's on 4 questions and I'm still on 1. So that's what I'm currently looking into, how to do that and how to take what we're doing and to move it to younger ages. Because let's face it, what's changed in our K through 12 education systems since when we were there, since our parents were there? Honestly, not that much.
Yeah. Yeah. And finally, Russell, if you have to give a piece of advice or a wisdom to our listeners on any topic.
I would say the first thing that you need to do is find out if your kid's dyslexic in kindergarten. Boys, you can tell easily. They act out generally. Girls are quiet. They just take it. If they're just not learning to read and write at that young age, find out immediately and then immediately just contact jail. How do we address this? Because then honestly, you're not going to need me that much. My goal is to get this thing fixed by the end of third grade. And my goodness, the smartest people in the world have figured this out across the Western world, and we know what to do. My goodness, just do it.
Russell, thank you so much for sharing your insights on dyslexia, learning systems, and human potential. It has been a pleasure having you on the show.
Thanks for having me. That was my longest podcast out of 211 of them.
As we conclude, I leave you with a few words from Temple Grandin, who once said, "The world needs all kinds of minds." Maybe that's the deeper truth here, and that's really what Russell's work is about. It's about understanding that different wiring isn't a flaw, it's part of a large design. It's not a mistake or an accident, but purpose. It's about creating environments that prioritize dignity over diagnosis. Those who refuse to label a child as broken simply because they learn differently, that shift us from judgment to understanding, from frustration to patience, from limitation to possibility. The world does not need fewer minds with dyslexia. It requires schools, families, and leaders who know how to nurture them. Because when we respect how someone is wired, we don't just improve their academic outcomes, we rebuild confidence, we renew purpose, and at times we renew hope. Thanks a lot. We want to thank you for joining our show. If you enjoyed this episode, we have more for you. You can now watch the entire episode on our YouTube and Spotify channels. While you're here, subscribe and don't forget to tap the bell. Visit prezerosportstalk.com to explore more conversations on sports, leadership, faith, performance, and innovation. From Sweden to the world. Until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and make a difference. We'll see you soon. Take care.